Jessica stood at her spot by the roadside, her hands cold and her gaze fixed down the street. She had joined the others tonight, feeling an unusual sense of hope. She didn't love her job, but tonight, she needed a big break. It was her turn to stand there, waiting for a wealthy client to pull up, and she prayed that the night would go smoothly. Then, an SUV rolled up slowly in front of her, its tinted windows lowered just enough for her to see a man seated in the back seat. He looked well dressed and he beckoned her over. "Join me for the night," he asked smoothly. Jessica hesitated only for a moment, thinking of the tips she could earn tonight. Her sister Thelma needed so much, and this job, for all its risk, was her only option. She smiled, gave a small nod, and stepped into the car, telling herself it would be worth it. As they drove, Jessica looked around the luxurious interior, thinking about how lucky she was to find someone with such wealth. The man didn't speak much, his gaze fixed ahead as if he had something on his mind. She felt the tension, but she shrugged it off, mentally counting the money she would likely take home. Tonight would be good, she thought. Tonight I'll make enough to pay Thelma's school fees. The idea alone warmed her. She and Thelma had lost their parents young and had been on their own ever since, relying on whatever Jessica could earn. She couldn't let her little sister down, nor could she let her know the source of the money she made. Ever since the death of their parents, she has felt a deep sense of responsibility towards Thelma, and she wanted the best for her. So she made the promise to herself to take care of her till she graduates from college. But Thelma was still young and innocent to the vile things of the world, so she had to work hard to fulfill her promise. When they finally arrived, Jessica's breath caught. The house was a mansion, with tall, large pillars and lights casting a soft glow across the long driveway. She couldn't believe her luck. This was it, the big break she had been hoping for. Her heart pounded with excitement as she imagined what the night would bring. "This way," the man said, leading her inside. The marble floor gleamed underfoot and the air was filled with a faint scent of roses. Jessica followed him upstairs, feeling as if she had stepped into another world. She entered the room, noting the large bed covered in silk sheets. The man pointed to it and said, "Wait here, I'll be back soon." She nodded, forcing a smile. As he left, she settled on the bed, glancing around, her mind wandering to Thelma and how she would be thrilled to see the money Jessica would bring home. This job was risky, but it was for Thelma. She owed her sister that much. Minutes ticked by and soon Jessica found herself wondering what was taking so long. After what felt like an hour, Jessica grew restless. She glanced at the door, half expecting the man to return, but the hallway was silent. She checked her watch. It was nearly midnight. Her curiosity got the best of her, so she decided to step out, figuring she could catch a glimpse of the mansion. Besides, a quick look around wouldn't hurt. Jessica slipped out of the room and tiptoed down the hall. The mansion was eerily quiet, with only a faint hum of a distant conversation echoing from a room down the hallway. The air felt heavy, and she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She moved closer towards the area of the voices, trying to listen in. As Jessica approached the partially open door, she paused. Inside, a group of men stood around a table, their heads bowed as if in deep concentration. Her eyes widened when she saw what lay on the table. A body, pale and still, surrounded by candles and strange objects. Her heart raced as she realized that she had stumbled upon something dark, something dangerous. Jessica strained to listen as one of the men whom she deemed the leader spoke in a low voice. "How's the girl you brought?" he asked, glancing at the man who had picked her from the streets. "Ready for the sacrifice," the man replied, his stone cold. "It will be sharp at midnight," the leader concluded. Jessica felt a jolt of terror. They were talking about her. Jessica backed away slowly, holding her breath. She needed to get out, and she needed to get out now. Her hands shook as she checked her watch again. 11:45 p.m. She had barely 15 minutes to escape before midnight. Without another thought, she turned and ran back to the room, her mind racing with fear. Once back in the room, Jessica threw her belongings into her bag, her fingers moving as quickly and as quietly as she could manage. She couldn't leave anything behind, or they might find her trails. She glanced at the door every second, sure someone would come in any moment. Her heart pounded louder with each passing second. Jessica peeked through the door, wanting to be sure no one was lurking around. She spotted a door at the end of the hall, one she guessed might lead to the back of the house. She moved quickly but carefully, avoiding the creaky spots on the floor as she made her way towards it. Pushing it open, she found herself outside in a small garden, surrounded by tall walls and shadow trees. She glanced around, taking a deep breath of the night air. She didn't dare slow down. Jessica sprinted through the garden, ignoring the branches that scratched her arms. The sound of the chanting faded behind her, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, that someone might be following her. She couldn't stop now, not with her life hanging by a thread. She thanked God when she saw no one was by the gate. She remembered the gate man opened the gate for them when she arrived, but she had no time to think. Reaching the street, Jessica kept running, her legs aching but her will strong. She glanced back only once, willing to find no one behind her. For the first time that night, she dared to hope she might actually get away. Jessica whispered the promise under her breath, "If I make it out alive, I will never come back." As she stumbled down the quiet street, Jessica's mind raced with relief and fear. She had escaped, but she knew she would have to find a way to survive without ever returning to that life. She would find a different path somehow, for herself and for Thelma. The blogger reading the story concluded by telling her audience and viewers the dangers lurking in the shadows of wealth and advising young girls to avoid making hasty decisions because of their current predicament. She went further to state that not everyone would be lucky like Jessica, as there were already people who fell victim and couldn't make it out alive, using the person on the table as an example. As the video ended, the woman watching on her phone glanced up, her 14-year-old daughter sitting quietly beside her, her eyes wide open. "Mom," the girl whispered, "did Jessica make it out safe?" Her mother replied, placing a hand on her daughter's shoulder with a soft, reassuring smile. "I believe she did. And remember, you can always find a way forward without risking your safety." The girl nodded thoughtfully, taking in the story's lesson. The mother watched her, hoping that Jessica's story had taught her daughter about courage and the dangers that could lurk beneath the promise of wealth and glamour. Silently, she hoped her daughter would always make safe choices. Now, having understood the risk of dangerous situations, she squeezed her daughter's hand and gave her a small smile, whispering, "Sometimes we learn the hardest lesson from the stories of others. Always trust your instincts." And with that, she closed her phone, both of them feeling the weight of Jessica's story lingering in the air.